Okay. Oh, and Martin had delicious fried chicken. Absolutely something to celebrate. Perfect. Okay, so welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about creating your self-care toolkit. So I know like self-care is, a huge buzzword and everyone's kind of talking about what to do, what not to do, etc. But the focus of today is really about it's not about me saying here's what you should do with self-care. It's actually about you figuring out what is it in your world that charges your energy and refuels you and fills your cup? And then what is it that brings you down and that drains your energy? And then how can you plan around each one of those things? So, how can you take the things that refuel you and use them where they make the most sense? And then, how can you take the things that drain you and plan around it so that if you know you're going to have a draining day, you can do a couple of things ahead of time to charge you up a little bit more. And we'll talk about how to do that. But ultimately, by the end of today, I want everyone to leave this session with a toolkit that's bespoke to them and their needs. So hopefully, everyone walks out with very different uh, lists of resources for themselves. Okay. So, for anyone who may be new to our monthly gathering here, I'm just going to do a quick little introduction of myself. I'm Stephanie. I call myself a former workaholic, and I spent over a decade of my career basically going through various cycles of burnout, and then escaping somewhere far away, usually without cell phone reception, to regroup for about 2 or 3 weeks. And then I'd come back and start the whole cycle over again. And probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I worked my way through my own burnout behaviors and figured out how to strike a balance between work and the rest of my life so that there really was a balance there and I wasn't just giving everything to work. And so now with my coaching practice, I'm focused on helping others do the same. So, how to recover from burnout or prevent it in the first place, and then redesign their life so that hopefully it never happens again. And that's not to say that I don't um, occasionally feel like I'm approaching burnout, but now I can recognize it so I don't go all the way into it. So, anyway, that's what I do now. It's my passion in life. And, I learned all my lessons the hard way. And now I'm on a mission to help people learn it the easy way, learn through me, and don't make the same mistakes I did. So, we're going to jump right in. So, real quick before we jump in, I just wanted to give you guys a quick overview of like what is the year of you. So you may have come here as part of the year of you. You may have come here just because you saw this on LinkedIn. But what we're doing is every month we're just meeting for an hour once a month to focus on you for that hour. And every time I'll bring something a little bit different from my coaching bag of tricks, and I'll share different tools, different exercises that are all focused on how to ultimately learn a little bit more about yourself and then um, and just like focus on bettering yourself in some way. That might be taking things out of your life, that might be adding things to your life, that might be tweaking the things that you're already doing in life. But ultimately, every time we share a tool or an exercise, it's meant to enhance whatever you're doing. I know a lot of you weren't able to make it last month. I sort of stupidly scheduled the call for Super Bowl Sunday, which not the best move on my part. But if you are interested in the personal retreat day, just let me know, and I can always forward you the video from that week because it is such a great tool. It's one of my favorite things to do every month as a way of like just really focusing on myself and restoring my energy. Okay, so jumping right in. So when we think about energy, I like to think of it as a finite resource. And it's kind of like a gas tank. So there are things that that refuel and that have your energy going up, and there are things that drain it out. But ultimately it's finite. And so if you stack your day with things that you know are going to drain it, by the end of it you're just completely depleted. And then over time, when that happens repeatedly, that's ultimately what turns into what we know as burnout now. Your energy can fluctuate throughout the day, and it's directly impacted by the thoughts, the feelings, and the behaviors that you have throughout the day, and also the stories that you tell yourself about those experiences along the way. So I'll give you an example. Same scenario, maybe two different ways of looking at it. So you're waiting for a meeting to start, and let's say the person that you're waiting for never shows up. If you look at if you look at that situation and think, well, great, now I have 30 minutes to get stuff done, that gratitude, the non-judgment, and the resourcefulness might end up fueling your tank a little bit more, adding a little bit of energy to your tank. Whereas if you looked at it as, if you looked at that same situation as like, oh, this person always blows me off, they're so inconsiderate, they don't value my time, that like anger and judgment and resentment is going to take your energy down and ultimately drain you. So that's one example of how even just looking at this same exact situation through two different types of energy can really change the way that situation impacts you. So I'm going to go a little bit deeper into those two types of energy because oftentimes we think about it as positive energy and negative energy. Oh, this person's super positive, they're very optimistic. Or oh, this person's a total like negative Nancy, and they're always like raining on my parade. But the way that that the Institute for Professional Excellence in Coaching, which is where I got my certification, defines it, is a little bit different than that. So the two types of energy that they talk about is catabolic and anabolic, and we'll focus on catabolic first. So catabolic energy is what I think most of us would refer to as negative energy. But the reason that we call it catabolic is because even at a cellular level, catabolic energy is actually the energy that you use when you're under stress. And so it's actually draining and destructive. It eats away at your cells at a cellular level because it's the cortisol and the adrenaline pumping through your system. And ultimately, this is the type of energy that works against you. So it's that energy that's like, oh, this person always blows me off in the previous example. And in the short term, it can actually be really effective at driving action and getting yourself to take an action on something that needs to be done. But in the long term, it can look like stress and then eventually burnout, because this sort of like negative, destructive, draining energy is ultimately what leads us all to feeling depleted, exhausted, and just like giving up. So that's a little bit about catabolic energy. Now, the other side of the equation is what we call anabolic energy. So this is the energy that's constructive, that's creative, that is actually building up energy. So this is the energy that I mentioned before that's more looking at like how you can be resourceful in the moment, or wow, I can use this time to do something else, or now I have a little bit of extra time to get my work done instead of looking at it as blaming that other person for blowing you off. Now, anabolic energy is the type of energy that it's expansive and it's fueling energy. And this is what looks like, if you're ever in the flow, or if you ever feel like you're in the flow, or feel like you're really in the groove with something, that's anabolic energy. And at a cellular level, anabolic energy releases anabolic hormones like endorphins and dopamine. So those are the things that actually rebuild your cells at a cellular level. So that's why we look at these in terms of not necessarily negative and positive, but really what it's doing in your body, because both of them can be useful, but they have to be used at the right times. So you'll notice there's a little icon on each one of these. Catabolic has like an empty battery, and then anabolic has a charge. And that's related to the next thing we're going to do. So if you think of this if you don't remember anything else, just kind of think about anabolic energy as the chargers, the things that refuel you, and catabolic energy as the things that drain you or exhaust you. And the first exercise we're going to do, so make sure you have a pen and paper nearby, is to just start to brainstorm some of the things that on a day-to-day basis charge you up. What makes you feel like you're creative, or you're turned on, or you're motivated to do something. Think about the moments of the day that you feel like you're in the flow, or even feeling most relaxed and content. Like what are you doing? What are you not doing? Maybe. When is it that you feel like you completely lose track of time and you're just really present in the moment? Maybe you feel relaxed or engaged or creative. Maybe you feel inspired. And sometimes when we're brainstorming these examples, it helps to think about people, places, and tasks. So what are the people that charge your energy? What are the places or the environments that you're in? And then what are the things that you're doing that charge up your energy? And as you write these down, kind of get in touch with what does it feel like in your body when you get into a place of this anabolic energy or this energy charging space? Does anyone want to share any examples? Either out loud or in the chat?
I'll go.
Yeah, go for it, Lakshmi.
Well, the thing that first came to mind was the thing that is draining me right now. I was thinking about my taxes. Probably, I don't think I'm probably the only one feeling that. And then things that charge me are like listening to a really good podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, a really good podcast always charges my energy as well. And I just started thinking about my taxes today, so I feel that. Anyone else want to share?
I could share. I sort of have two things that I feel like charge me, but they're very different. One is when I get to take my shower in the morning. I love a good hot shower. And then also working out. So one's more like I'm moving and doing something, and the others I'm standing there and shampooing. And they're very different, but they both give me energy.
Yeah, I love that. And what's so interesting about these lists is that everyone's list is going to be a little bit different. So you get energy from working out. I know a couple of people that would rather, I don't know, go to the dentist than go work out. It's not very energizing to them. Or it's even really interesting if you look at two different types of exercise. There might be an exercise that you really like to do that energizes you, and then maybe one that feels more like a chore. AJ says, it's me. Martin says, learning and doing something new charges me. Yeah, same. Me too. One of the other things that, just to throw out a couple other energizing examples, a good, just 20-minute yoga session really energizes me. It makes me feel taken care of. It brings my stress level down. And it also just has me feeling like, okay, I took time for myself. I took some time, and my body just feels better. Oh, hi, Betty. Anabolic, creating something, writing puzzles, putting together a Lego set. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, I love Legos. Yeah. And Amanda says, spontaneous phone calls with coworkers drains energy. Yeah, the boundaries around work from home are a little gray now, aren't they? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so actually, let's go to the other side of the chart and write down, if you haven't already, write down some of the things that drain your energy. Think about the moments in your day where you feel tired or depleted. Moments that you're feeling like distracted or drained, aggravated or annoyed. Maybe the moments where you're forcing yourself to focus or to get something done, like really just kind of like white knuckling it and going through it instead of settling in because you want to. And again, kind of think about, it's helpful to think about the people, places, and tasks. Maybe there are some people that drain you. Maybe there are some places or tasks that drain you. And if anyone wants to share some additional examples to the other ones that we've already gotten in the chat, go for it. I know for me, like one thing that drains my energy is if I walk out into the kitchen in the morning and see just like a messy kitchen or crumbs on the counter or dishes in the sink. I'm just like, ugh, why? And it's not, it takes 5 seconds to clean it up, but there's something about that that just like brings me down and starts my day in sort of a catabolic space. Anyone else want to share? Oh my gosh, yes. Instagram scrolling. Good one. Yes. I have that one on as an example on the next slide. So I'm curious, like, oh my gosh, yes, injustice, small and big. Wow, that is such a prescient example for our world today. And it is yeah, that's definitely a drain. Yes. Also, a Netflix show with 9 episodes that could have been 4. Absolutely. So, as you look at both sides of your list, what are you noticing? Are you noticing any relation between the two? Is there something that charges your energy where another version of that drains it? Was it easier to make one list over another? How are they similar or how are they different?
I have a thought about that, Stephanie.
Yeah, go for it.
I feel I'm a little embarrassed to admit this, but as I'm looking at my own list, I realize that the things that charge my energy are things that I can control. So I get a lot of energy from cooking because I feel very creative when I'm cooking, or I also put listening to a podcast or learning from others. At work, I get charged when I have time to think and mind map and brainstorm all the information that I've taken in. And then the things that drain me are things that where other people are impeding on me and my time. So I get drained when I get all these urgent, my day is disrupted and my schedule is disrupted by people, saying something else has come up and it's urgent, or, having to start a day very early because there's, my work day very early because there's a lot of meetings that had to get scheduled, and, bad news, which is like other, again, other things, other people. So for me, the difference was I feel like I'm in control of charging my energy, and other people kind of control draining my energy.
That's super interesting. And, I'm hoping that by the end of today, you're going to feel more in control of the drainers, or at least of like balancing those back out. But yeah, that's so interesting. But, when I hear that, I also, I think that there's actually a good thing in that, because some people are really reliant on others to get the chargers. And so the fact that you can charge up without really anyone else's help or input or influence, that puts a lot of power into your hands. But it can also feel like everyone's encroaching on your safe space when all the drainers are coming from outside, and it feels like, get out of here. Okay, that's a great example though. Thanks for sharing, AJ. Yeah, lots of agreement with that in the chat. Okay, anyone else want to share?
I was just going to say, to add to what AJ was saying, this is kind of similar, but I was noticing in my list that when I don't plan my day, I reach for the things on the draining side. I reach for Instagram, I reach for Netflix, I reach for whatever. And when I do plan my day and think about what do I want to accomplish today, then I tend to fill it with the things that charge me.
Oh, that's so interesting. What a wonderful insight about the difference between the two. And what a wonderful motivation to keep up with actually planning your day. Love that. Thanks for sharing, Lakshmi. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is what I want you to do is I want you to, you can ignore the examples on the list, but I want you to draw a vertical line and then a horizontal line right down the middle of it. And what you're going to do then is just chart out the chargers and the drainers, and you can use the list you just made, and you can add more, or you don't have to put everything on there. It's totally up to you. But what I want you to do is map out where each one of these chargers and drainers exist as it relates to this line. So like think about the horizontal line in the middle as kind of like neutral, and then the higher the line is on the plus side, the more it charges you. The lower the line is on the bottom side, the more it drains you. And just take some time to just kind of chart out some of these examples that you just brainstormed, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit about it. So I'll give you like a minute or so to do that. And you can see some of my examples on the screen as you do it. So as you're working on this, I was thinking a lot about my chargers this week, with all of the extremely difficult news that is going on this week. And I mean, let's be honest, for the last couple of years. But last Saturday, as everything was happening over in Europe, I was really struggling with, what do I do? What do I do to make an impact? And I went and found the right place that I felt to make a donation. But then I thought, what can I do to preserve my own mental space and sanity? And I ended up turning on an album of my favorite musical. And it was, I felt a little conflicted about it, to be honest, because I was like, here I am, thousands of miles away, sitting in my kitchen and singing to this musical when all of these people are going through something extremely difficult. But where I also landed with that is both of those things can be true. And a lot of times both of those things need to be true. That at the same time that there's suffering, there also needs to be joy. And so I just was reflecting on this exercise, and so that kind of made my first one here is listening to my favorite musical is actually very recharging for me. I know that sounds kind of silly, but it is. So anyway, I'll just share a couple of my examples here. Like anyone who knows me knows I am a karaoke fanatic, so that is like the top charger for me. I love to do yoga. I love to chat with Lakshmi, who is on the call right now. But then I was thinking about some of the other things in life and like watching the news, biggest drainer, scrolling Instagram. I had that one as well. Seeing trash on the street, just like when people don't respect our world, it really bums me out. Meetings over an hour, just like really drain my energy, clutter. And then I realized that like one of the things I do a lot to recharge is watch TV. And when I looked at like where that belonged on my list, it was actually right in the middle. It wasn't really something that recharged my energy, and most of the time it wasn't something that drained my energy, but I realized that instead of being something that truly like had me feeling relaxed, it just sort of was like somewhere in the middle. It was sort of like net neutral, which I thought was an interesting observation. Anyone else wanna share an observation that they had about their exercise, or maybe it's something surprising that came to light?
I had something that was on my catabolic list, which is saying no, mostly like in work situations. But what I noticed when I did this exercise is that it's much less of a drainer than it would have been years ago. Like even though it's never probably going to make it to the other side, the acceptance of, oh yeah, it's something that needs to happen, still doesn't feel great, but accepting that it's okay. It just makes it less of a drainer.
Yeah. That's so interesting. And like and knowing that it's still like necessary, but now you're at a point where like it's not such a drain on your energy. That's a really interesting example. Thanks for sharing. Okay. Oh, yes. Oh my gosh, Paige, totally. Talking to family and friends can both charge or drain on my energy depending on the topics we end up talking about. +1 to that. Yes. I think everyone on the call could probably relate to some aspect of that. And what's interesting too is the energy that you go into it with it also plays into this. So like I know myself, like if I go into a call and say, oh, I have to call this person, I haven't talked to them in a long time, that doesn't feel like a charger. That feels like a drainer. But if I say, oh my gosh, I can't wait to call so-and-so because I really want to catch up with them and I want to see how they're doing, that feels much more like a charger for me. So even the language that you use out loud or even in your head impacts how you see it. Okay, so what do we do with this? And this kind of goes back to, AJ, what you were saying earlier about feeling like you don't have a ton of control over the drainers that come into your life. So 2 ways of kind of using these lists is if you wanted to use it as like a proactive charge up. So let's say you have a day of meetings and it's looking like it's going to be, pretty tiring by the end of it. You have all the like markers of, okay, this is going to leave me pretty depleted by the end. You could proactively charge up or proactively schedule some different chargers throughout the day. So maybe it's a dance break between meetings, or maybe it's your favorite lunch that really makes you feel nourished or something like that. Or a call with a friend, even if it's just 5 minutes, something to splice little bits of anabolic energy throughout the day that'll have you feeling a little bit better, at least, than you did before. And then the other way to use this is reactively recharge. And I think that's probably how most of us typically look to the self-care things in our lives. But, looking at looking at your checklist, picking the things that feel most helpful in the moment, and making time for yourself to charge back up. I think, the other thing too is like my example about TV before, like that was that's an example of, I think at the end of the day, oh, I'm going to watch TV and then I'll feel so relaxed. And like now from this exercise, I've kind of realized like, oh, it's not really as restorative as I thought. So maybe I'll do a little bit of yoga and then watch TV. Or maybe I'll go for a walk with my dog and then turn on a show. So that I'm kind of like combining things so that I get that recharge and then I also get some relaxation. Any questions about this? Okay. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go into an exercise where we're making, like, we love to-do lists. I love a to-do list. Sometimes I just add things to my to-do list so that I can scratch it off. It's like an amazing sense of accomplishment, even though I was going to do it anyway. But one thing we typically don't use to-do lists for is to do things that we love and then to do things we don't love. So we're going to make a love to-do list and a not to-do list. Like, actually, it's I guess a form of boundary setting where we're going to actually say, like, these are the things that actually are not good for me and don't fill me up. So as much as I can control it, I'm not going to do them anymore. And this comes from, I love this quote from Burnout. If you haven't read it, it's really fantastic, by the Nagoski sisters. But they say in here that wellness is not a state of being, but instead it's a state of action. So it's something that we're constantly trying to cultivate and constantly trying to practice. And wellness is a practice that we can all be better at, and then we're never fully finished with. So the first thing we're going to do is make our love to-do list. And I'm happy to send everyone this slide when we're all done, so you can do it on there, and print it out and have it at home. But what I want you to do is go back to your chargers or come up with new ones on the spot and just try and like fill out these different areas. So the stuff that recharges me, stuff that puts a smile on my face, stuff that I love to do but never make time for. I know I have a million of those things that I genuinely enjoy but just don't prioritize. Stuff that inspires me, stuff that nurtures me. So as you kind of get like one or two bullets in each one of these, the purpose of this is to, first of all, just be more aware of the things that like fill you up and the different dimensions of how you can kind of care for yourself. Not everything has to be a manicure or a massage or, a bath. It can be, I love the podcast episode example from earlier, or, even like putting on your favorite sweatshirt could be a form of self-care, and that's something we could all do no matter where we are or how much time we have, or what restrictions exist. And what I like to do with this, I actually have this list, and then the next one we're gonna work on. I have these printed out next to my desk, and I use them as a reference so that anytime I need a little pick-me-up, I actually have like, okay, what do I need? Oh, I need to be recharged. Okay, I'm gonna go to my stuff that recharges me list. Or, oh, I'm feeling a little bit unmotivated. Oh, I'm gonna look for the stuff that inspires me and maybe go to those websites or maybe pull out that book that always kind of says the right thing, or has something that makes me think a little bit differently. Because a lot of times when we're under stress or when we're going from thing to thing and super busy, we don't have the time, and we don't take the time to actually think about this. So that's why it's really helpful just to have it printed out, have it somewhere visible, so that You don't have to think about it. You can just go to the list and pick something that makes you happy and do it. So with that, does anyone want to share something fun that's on their love to do list?
I can share.
Yes, I don't know who just said that, but yes.
Cool.
Please.
Oh, it's me. It's Amanda. Sorry.
Oh, hey, Amanda. Yeah, go for it.
Everything's working. I just have like one for each. So stuff that recharges me, a healthy meal I cooked, stuff that puts a smile on my face, fresh cut flowers, stuff that inspires me, watching a master class, stuff that nurtures me, the Daily J on the Calm app. And stuff I love to do but never make the time for is baking.
Ah, yes.
Wish I
You
could
are
do that
such
more.
a talented baker.
I know, and I don't get to do it enough, but I love to do it.
Yeah. So now that you have all these great inputs, what's is there one thing on the list that you can commit to this week?
Probably a healthy meal that I can cook for myself, just taking the time to do that, not ordering out or eating something fast that's unhealthy.
Yeah, I love that. I also like your example about the flowers, fresh flowers. That's such a great one because I think like I relate to that. I'm like, "Oh yeah, I love fresh flowers, but I never buy them for myself ever." And it's like, "Why?" Now I'm inspired to go out and get flowers tomorrow and put them in a vase and like put them somewhere next to my desk where I can see them. I love that. Okay, anyone else want to share? Great examples. Okay, so we're going to move on to the not to do list. So this is like boundary setting, on steroids. So you can go back to your list of drainers for inspiration, or you can come up with new ones based on the prompts that are on the slide. But I want you to start putting, a bullet or two within each one of these boxes. So stuff that distracts me and wastes my time. Stuff that doesn't actually need to be done. I am so guilty of this one. Oh my gosh. I love doing stuff that doesn't need to be done. I love it. It's my favorite. Stuff I can't control or isn't my responsibility. So that's another one. I just love to get in there and yeah. Love doing stuff that's not my responsibility. Stuff that stresses me out and gives me anxiety. So what are those that that you could actually not do if you wanted to? And then here's another huge one for burnout. Stuff I feel obligated to do. So that's like, when I was saying earlier about the language we use about doing the things that we're doing. Oh man, the stuff we feel obligated to do are immediate drainers. Like, oh, I have to call that person, or oh, I have to do my taxes. So we still have to do them, or taxes anyway. You don't have to call anyone, but you have to do your taxes. But we can always think about how to maybe make it a little bit more fun or make it something that you might actually want to do. So, who wants to share something from your not to do list?
Can I share one? Sorry, Cooks, this is me, Kirsten.
Yeah.
Can I share one of mine, the stuff that distracts me and wastes my time?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Facebook.
Yeah.
I spend an exorbitant amount of time on Facebook doing absolutely nothing. It's a waste of time. And then it makes me feel terrible when my iPhone's like, here's your screen time every week. I'm like, oh gosh, that's awful.
Yeah. So with that, and it's totally up to you, but with that, do you want to set a goal around that for this week?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So the only things that I feel like are good check-ins for me is there's a couple of groups that are support groups for me on there. So maybe I check into those support groups let's say once a day for 10 minutes. And then that's my limit. That would be a major, major cutback from what I do.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And you can kind of like, you can set a timer when you go on.
Yep.
Yeah, I love that.
Cool. I'll definitely commit to doing that for sure.
I also think that's a great example, Kerr, because what you said is like, I love Facebook for this reason, for the support groups that I get a lot out of, and I want to continue to do that. But then I get roped into other stuff and it makes me feel bad about the time I spend.
Yep.
So what's great is like on your not to do list is just, going on Facebook for unlimited amount of time and going on there and scrolling. But what's on maybe your love to do list or just whatever is going and checking in on these groups for 10 minutes a day.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
And AJ said you can set a time limit for using specific apps each day, and it will notify you and lock the app when you reach it. Ooh, I do that for TikTok. I actually had to quit TikTok because I was spending so much time, but I should have done that, AJ. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, that's a great tip. I didn't realize you could do that, but I'm going to
Yeah.
set that for this week. I'll set Facebook for that.
Cool. Anyone else want to share something from their not to do list? Okay, great. So the next section is, these are all tools that you could use in your self-care toolkit. This one in particular is to try and take some of the responsibility away from yourself when you're feeling stressed or when you're feeling overwhelmed. So what I've done here is it's just like if this, then this. So if I'm feeling, I'll give you a couple examples. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, anxious, depleted, inadequate, or frustrated, then and you can fill it in with the thing that you know will work best for you in that moment. And by the way, these can also be if I'm feeling happy, joyful, connected, whatever. They don't have to be all these sort of catabolic emotions. But I find myself needing a reminder in the moments where I'm feeling these types of things, what I should do. So I'll give you an example of these, but please create your own. So I went back to my drainers and chargers list and I said, if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm going to call Lakshmi. If I'm feeling anxious, I'm going to do the shake it off thing that we did on our very first monthly get together, or I'm going to do a thought download where I just write everything that's on my mind, and it really does ease my anxiety. If I'm feeling depleted, I'm going to do 20 minutes of yoga. If I'm feeling inadequate, I'm writing 10 things that make me awesome. And I'm just going to remind myself of that. I'm going to force myself to point out to my brain all the things that I'm great at. And if I'm feeling frustrated or stressed, I'm going to book a workout class and go and actually work out all that stress out of my body. So the reason, again, that this is helpful is because a lot of times when we're in these feelings of overwhelm, anxiety, inadequacy, we don't have the mental clarity to say, oh, well, I'm gonna call a friend, or I'm going to pull out my yoga app, or I'm going to, book a workout class. We just spin, or we get angry, or we, do something rather unproductive typically. So that's why I think it's really helpful to have a list, that you could go to remind yourself, oh, okay, this is what helps when I'm feeling this way. Or this is these are a couple good ideas of, that quell my anxiety. So this is just kind of another tool that you can use that's a little bit different than the not to-do list or the chargers and drainers. So that is that's the show for self-care, the self-care toolkit. And so now I'd just love to hear if anyone wants to share what you're taking away from today's session and how you might incorporate this into your life this month.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
So the not to do list, I was really struggling with the stuff I can't control or isn't my responsibility. And specifically, I think the reason I was struggling was I'm sure in some way we're all in a situation where we have a job or responsibility or something that we are expected to do, but that there's also kind of this expectation of being a quote unquote team player, right? And that could be in your family, that could be at work, that could be with your friends. And that if you kind of shirk it off as not my responsibility, then it reflects poorly that, wow, you're not being a team player. And so I guess I'm having a hard time finding that boundary of like, how do I, when do I get to say, I'm not going to do that because it's not my responsibility and I don't need to, it's going to deplete my energy, and still maintain people's trust and reassurance that I am a team player. I'm not just saying, well, that's not my job, I'm not going to do it. Or that's not, I don't specifically had to just cut the tomatoes. If you're too slow cutting the cheese and you're too slow making the, hamburger meat, I'm not going to help you, or whatever the case is. Right.
Yeah. So that's really interesting. And I'm sure other people had that same question because I think we're all sort of told, like, come on, jump in, be a team player. And I think that is, that mentality works, except when it gets to be too much. And when you're taking on more than your fair share, or when you're taking on an amount of work that causes you to completely drain your energy. So I guess what I would ask you is, in those moments where you're faced with a question of, do I jump in or not? Do I help this person out or not? I would ask, like, how am I feeling? Am I at my max? Am I totally depleted? Or do I actually have time and space to help this person? Can I take this task over for my coworker or my neighbor or something, and do it from a place of like, I want to help and I can help, versus I have to because otherwise I won't be a team player. Does that difference kind of make sense?
That does, actually. It really does. Thank you so much.
Yeah, for sure. Great question. Okay, so Amanda says, my takeaway, you can't control everything, but you can control where you choose to put your energy and ultimately have radical acceptance. Don't fight reality. Yeah. And you can control how you choose to see things. We're gonna do something next month, actually, where we look at 7 different ways to see any given situation. And it's like the 7 different levels of energy, or the 7 different types of energy you can approach any given situation with. And it's exactly that. It's about not fighting reality, but instead feeling empowered to consciously choose what the type of energy that's going to serve you best in that moment is.
I'll give what I
take away.
Yeah, I'll share it. So one of the things I took away is, I gave the example of the Facebook, time I spent on Facebook, and Joe and I have talked about that so many times. He's like, you waste so much time on Facebook, but writing it down makes a difference, and actually recognizing that it's different than just talking about it.
Yeah. How is that different for you?
So it kind of puts it into perspective, like, gosh, I really do waste a lot of time. I mean, you can talk about it, but if you think back to like when you write it down, I feel like you're like recognizing it in a bigger way, and like saying, next to other things that are, not great things that you have to do, you're saying, wow, this falls in the same category as these other ones. This isn't very great.
Yeah. Sometimes just having that awareness is half the battle.
Yep.
Okay, thanks, Betty. Thanks for stopping in. Cool. Okay, anyone else want to share?
I have a share, but I have spoken twice, so I want to make sure. I'm going to see if anyone else wants to, and then I'll jump in real quick.
I think you're good.
Oh, okay. So I was just going to say, I really love the idea of the if this, then that idea, because I think you're absolutely right. Like when I have those moments when I'm overwhelmed or frustrated, it's not my best decision-making moment. And when I'm overwhelmed or frustrated, I think what's going to make me feel better is like a Pinot Noir. And maybe that's not what I should be doing.
Yes.
But I think it's just a little bit of preparation, or looking at something on the wall to be like, oh, it's actually a podcast episode, or, oh, it's actually folding laundry, or something that suits me.
Yeah,
Would
totally.
be a really nice intervention.
Yes, I love that example. My version of Pinot Noir is a box of Cheez-Its. I'm like, oh, for sure, like this meeting was really hard. Cheez-Its are what I need. And no, they're not. But they're always the first thing I think of.
Right.
So yes, I love that. I love that example. They are delicious. I mean, it's undeniable. They are the best. Okay, so as we wrap up, just wanted to get you guys some homework if you're interested in that. But your homework for this month is to reflect on the first quarter of the year. What worked? What worked well? What didn't necessarily work for you? And what do you want to do differently moving into Q2? I can't believe we're already talking about Q2 2022, but we are. So those are 3 questions I love to ask on like all sorts of different things, on goals that I'm working on like different experiments that I'm running at work. They're so simple, but they're really impactful. Next month's meetup will be on the 3rd at 7. And like I said before, we're going to look at 7 ways to see anything. I'm specifically going to be focusing on the return to the office, since that is something that a lot of us are facing right now. We're heading back to the office, or supposedly we will be this spring. And so I know there's a lot of catabolic energy around that. And so we'll look at 7 ways to see that situation, and how we can do that. And then the last thing I'll say is just if like I was saying before, I am coaching burnout, coaching people dealing with burnout, and so if you know of anyone who is struggling with that right now, and who is interested in coaching, please let them know that they can call me for a free discovery call. We can talk a little bit about what it might look like to work together, and ultimately I can walk them through the process that I've used to get over burnout in my own life, and also to coach other people through it. And it's something that I'm really passionate about, and I want to help as many people as possible. So the last thing I'll say is that if you were interested in kind of getting greater awareness around the things that fill you up and the things that drain your energy, there is a wonderful exercise from Design Your Life, and it's called the Good Time Journal, which is basically what you see on the page right here. But you just write down the different activities that you're doing at work, at home, etc. And then you actually say, like, how engaged am I? And then what kind of energy am I feeling around this? And you could always change the negative, positive to anabolic and catabolic, per the discussion today. But if you're interested in that, I'm happy to send you the PDF so you can print it out and do it at home. But thank you again so much for joining us. Hopefully this was helpful, and that you feel like you have a bespoke list of the things that are going to ultimately keep you at your best, and they go beyond manicures and massages, hopefully, although those are fabulous as well. So thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate it. Good to see everyone.
Thanks, Steph.
Okay.
Thank you, Steph.
Thanks, Steph.
And
Thank you, Steph.
You're
Thank
welcome.
you.
All right. Bye-bye. Have a great week, everyone.
You too. Bye.
I